So what's up, guys? Paul Salmon here. I'd like to say thank you for all the kind, heartwarming comments that was made on my last video. There it is. Woo! Some people are a little bit. Okay, so I did a video, and the point I was trying to make with the video was that I think, this is my personal opinion, and I'll back it up a little bit here, I think that risks during solo flight could be mitigated considerably if we did some degree of a supervised solo with the instructor. Once again, I said this on the last time. If the instructor sat next to the student, was there to observe, make sure that the student did everything correctly. All right. If they screwed it up and didn't do it correctly, why not make that dual instruction? They can have another go of it, and they've got to do, if you like 10 hours, that's great. 10 hours of supervised solo without making any mistakes at all and being successful in the flight. All right. I don't see a problem with that. All right. Now, a lot of people would make comments about basically inferring that the risks are greater, you're much more likely to have an accident if you have an instructor on board the aircraft versus doing solo flight. And that is absolutely not true. I'm not sure how you're interpreting the statistics, and there's some statements on it I see you could get confused. But here's this is the Air Safety Institute study from 2014 that looked at accidents that occurred during training flights. All right. Now, the first off here, it says fatal accident rates during instructional flights were less than half of those during non-instructional flights. Okay. So what would be the big difference if it's lower during an instructional flight versus a non-instructional flight? Well, there's a guy sitting next to you or a gal called a flight instructor. All right. And so the incidence is less with a flight instructor on board. We'll get to the rest of it. Now, I'm basically going to concentrate on, because this is the point I was trying to make, on primary flight instruction. That's instruction with people that do not possess a rating. They're going for their first rating, and I'm going to speak most specifically about their private pilot's rating, not particularly sport pilot, but private pilot. Okay, let me read you another little statement from the summary here. 2/3 of primary training accidents in fixed-wing aircraft happened on student solo flights. 2/3 of the accidents, all right? Student solo flights in fixed wing accounts for between 20 to 25% of the total flight hours flown by the student. It accounts for 65% of the accidents, right? 2014 ASI, check it out. Here's another study from Europe. All right, it's Europe, but guess what? They found essentially the same thing. Training on solo flights comprised 56% of the accidents, right? Again, 20 to 25% of the flying amounted to 56 to 66% of the accidents. Solo flight is much more risky than having an instructor sitting next to you. Okay, so the whole point I was trying to make was that if you had an instructor sitting next to you, the ability to save your bacon and prevent an accident, I think, would be much greater. It's not an absolute, but I think it would be much greater if you had an instructor sitting next to you. So when you look at helicopters, solo flights with the students only accounted for about 25% of the accidents, not 65%. So what's the biggest difference? And they actually cited this in this study, that likely what happens is, and I can tell you from a personal viewpoint, I happen to agree with their assessment, is that most of the time the helicopter students are going to receive more instruction before they are solo. And I think that has a significant decrease in the percentage of accidents that occur to solo flight. Okay, so one simple act of omission, forgetting to do something, can result in an accident. I'll give you an example. You helicopter flight instructors out there, have you ever reminded a student to apply their carb heat when they forgot? Have you? Yeah. Guess what? That one simple act to prevent that mistake of omission likely significantly reduced, if not avoided, an accident. Right? And don't think that something as simple as not putting on the carb heat can result in an accident. It did, and specifically, I mentioned it in the last video. There was an accident that occurred here up near Columbia, Missouri. It was actually near Fulton, Missouri, where the student was on a solo flight, forgot to put their carb heat on, ended up getting carb ice, and had a resultant rotor stall, didn't get the collective down, had a rotor stall, and was killed in the accident. So one simple act, one simple mistake of omission is all it takes to cause an accident. If an instructor was sitting next to him, would the chances of him being reminded to put on his carb heat and avoided the accident in the first place? Yes, I would think it would be quite high. Okay, so when I soloed back in the 70s, I thought it was kind of a risky endeavor, and guess what? I still do, all right? So people, some comments were, are you really actually a flight instructor? Yeah, I'm actually a flight instructor. And I've got, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of about almost 17,000 hours. Almost all of that's flight instruction in rotorcraft, helicopters and gyroplanes. And, you know, I provide 500 to 1,000 hours of instruction per year, all right? And yes, I still solo my students. Do I like it? Nope, I sure don't. Do you get nervous when you set students up for solo? Yeah, even after, you know, all this time and all these hours, I still get nervous doing it. And I'm just in the back of my mind, it's still, man, I hope something doesn't happen, you know. And you really, you know, I just think we can mitigate the heck out of risk if we did it that way. I don't think it's that big of a deal. During their 10 hours of supervised solo, they could then do their check ride, and they've convinced the DPE that they know what they're doing. They get their license, and there's a requirement that if you guys like 10 hours of solo, okay, 10 hours of work, but they have to do 10 hours of solo before they take a passenger with them. I don't have a problem with that at all. I think it's a reasonable thing to do, and I think it would reduce risk. Would it cost more? Yeah, it probably would. But a little bit unhandy? Yeah, a little bit. Would it save a bunch of lives and accidents and airplanes and helicopters? Yep, you bet I would. You bet I do. So, okay, so I thought I'd go on YouTube and take a little look and see if I could find some video footage of students crashing. It took me a grand total of about 10 seconds to find several videos that elicit students that crash on solo flights. All right. In fact, one guy actually went off the runway and taxied what looked like a country mile until he finally rammed into the hangars and you know, destroyed the aircraft, did a significant amount of damage to the hangar. I don't think he was significantly injured, at least I hope he wasn't anyway. But you can't tell me that if an instructor was sitting next to him, the instructor could not have prevented that accident. This guy just kept driving and driving and driving right into the hangar. All right, so I mean, it's kind of crazy. That's my thoughts on the situation. So I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. And I can already feel the love coming my way on the comments. So let's hear them. And I hope you found this at least partially informative and entertaining. Please like and subscribe. And we'll see you guys on the next highly controversial video. Thanks.
I put an Airbus dead center on the center line, not even touch a thing.
Yeah.
Hit a button.
Yeah. I think the Airbus puts it on the center line.
Cheater mode.
Tighten it up, tighten it up. Tighten it up. All right, you got her now. Keep that nose down. I might just a little, just make it easier. Breathe it on.
I was just gonna.
You'd have made it fine.
I was just holding it right here.
Yeah, you're still in the air.
I know. I was just holding it right there.
Yeah.